Hey there, it's the Jew from the Chew on This podcast, letting you know you can leave comments, questions, and suggestions a number of ways. Reviews and comments are appreciated on iTunes and YouTube, and you can check out our daily postings on Facebook. Our Twitter feed and Instagram is at Chew on This Pod, and of course, as always, you can email us directly at chewonthispodcast@gmail.com. So there you have it, folks. Short of a bat signal or an Avengers card, there's all the ways you can let us know how big of a nerd you truly are. Enjoy and chew on this podcast. Welcome to episode 22 of Chew on This, a Nerds United podcast. I'm BJ.
Vic.
Dude, I am super excited for Civil War. Just one more week to go.
Yeah, by the time this podcast released, it'll be, what is it?
Like
4 days.
Yeah.
4 days, yeah.
And so for all you guys out there, we decided this week we'd talk about Civil War, the comic book. So spoilers, spoilerific ahead. And also probably dive in a little bit into the Captain America movies. But
Let's go with the Captain America movies first, and then we'll move into the Civil War comic books, kind of like a timeline type thing.
Sure.
So let's go with the first thing, which was Captain America: The First Avenger, that came out, quite a few years ago. That started this whole Captain America trilogy. I don't even know where to start with this one, because this was one of my favorite ones that came out, the early, like, out of all the intro, the story origins of all the comic books that Marvel has done, that has been under the Marvel Studios header. This was one of my favorites, right up there with Iron Man. It didn't get as much love as Iron Man, but I really liked this one.
I really liked it too. What did you think about? I know that we're going back like 5-6 years ago now, but what did you think about the casting when they said they got Chris Evans to be Captain America?
I was actually, I don't think I was mad or like, what the fuck, this was Johnny Storm, because everything that I had ever seen him in, he was really good in it. Like, I really loved him in what was that one comic book movie? He was like a bit character, the boyfriend he played. Shit, I can never remember the names of shit.
I just remember like his latest work has been really good, like Snowpiercer. I really dug. So different.
Well, he played Johnny Storm. Then he also played the ex-boyfriend of, fuck, what the hell is the name of this?
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about Scott Pilgrim.
Yes, Scott Pilgrim, which was like, I don't know. I think a lot of comic book people who actually read the comic books didn't really like it, but I really I like the movie.
Oh,
it was so
man,
different.
I know. I love Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Every time
he
you
was
watch it, it
different
gets
than that.
better.
Yeah, it was different. He was different in that. So I really liked him. And then when he got cast as Captain America, I was like, well, he definitely looks like Captain America. Like, I mean, he wasn't jacked as Johnny Storm, but, I thought he would bulk up a little bit, but I didn't think he would bulk up that much that he did in the first movie.
Yeah.
But, I was like, if he can pull off the Captain America part like he did the other, like Johnny Storm, because, I mean, again, 20th Century Fox has basically fucked up every version of Fantastic Four. But the couple of good things that did happen out of that movie, number one, he was the best thing out of the whole Fantastic Four, and then Michael Chiklis was like right behind him.
Mm-hmm.
I thought his Johnny Storm portrayal was the closest to the comic book Johnny Storm. So I thought, if he could do it, and balls, like, fucking, how about the balls on Marvel to be like, you know what, you were Johnny Storm, but fuck that, you're going to be our Captain America.
I know. Well, I think he definitely pulled it off, because when I first heard of the casting, I was like, oh man, like, I'm so used to him as Johnny Storm, but which is a completely different character than Captain America. Like, Johnny Storm is kind of, dickish, and he's egotistical and got a chip on his shoulder, and but he also like has fun being a superhero. Like he just thinks it's cool.
Yeah, he's almost, what's kind of weird, he's kind of like a poor version and a not as smart version of Tony Stark.
Yeah, yeah, big less money.
Right,
Yeah,
but in the same way, he is kind of like, he's self-centered, kind of like how Johnny Storm is. So, they share that trait, which is kind of interesting.
yeah, big time, big time. But yeah, so I don't know. I my expectations were kind of low going into Captain America. I've never really been a big fan of Captain America, but then again, I really wasn't a big fan of Iron Man either until I watched the movie, and then I thought, dang, this is really cool. So going into this movie, I knew little to nothing. This was like back in 2011. I think I saw it when I was in Comic Con. I saw it because it came out during the Comic Con weekend, and I went and saw it, and was, like you said, just loved it. Very pleasantly surprised when I walked out of there. I was like, damn, these guys are just killing it, And I think that movie came out before Thor, right? Like it was in the same year. Like,
Can't remember. I think it was the same year.
yeah, I think it was like four
I
or
mean,
five months later.
if I was gonna be more surprised, I was probably more surprised with Thor just because of the content.
Yeah.
But with Captain America, what a stellar cast too. I mean, they had Stanley Tucci, who was great. I mean, I always loved Stanley Tucci. Tammy Lee Jones was in there. Very little known at that point in time of Haley Atwell was in there.
Oh yeah, Agent Carter. Yeah.
And then the guy who plays Bucky, Bucky Barnes, in there too. He was really good. I can't, off the top of my head, can't think of his name right
There's a
now.
lot of good supporting actors. Tommy Lee Jones was in there. Yeah, like you mentioned, Stanley Tucci was the doctor. Um, there's that one guy he's actually a bad guy on Arrow right now, and he was in there. The blonde haired guy. God, I can never remember his name. He's in a lot of stuff. He's a character actor. He's in a lot of stuff. But he played one of the soldiers. Really, really strong cast. And
Oh, don't forget the Red Skull.
oh, Red Skull, of course, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Hugo Weaving. Yeah, that dude has been in God. The only thing he hasn't been in is a Star Wars movie. He's been in everything else. You
Right.
know. Yeah, this I looked it up, and the movie was, as far as like box office wise, wasn't their strongest, but it got an 80% Rotten Tomatoes, which I can kind of agree with that. I think it may be a little bit higher, but um, this was directed by Joe Johnston, who's done a lot of great work over the years.
He's
And
worked with Steven Spielberg. I think he did Jurassic Park 3. I think that was
I think
his
so. Yeah,
blockbuster.
yeah. He's just very like what do you call it? Consistent. Just really consistent. Makes
Yeah.
pretty decent movies. But this one I thought was extremely strong. It was a really strong movie from beginning to end. And I thought it was really cool that they went back in time to tell it's not like they didn't modernize this story and just start him off in the real world in modern times. They put him back in World War II, did all that stuff. And I love that. I just love the imagery. And they did something really ballsy too. Like after he became Captain America, he didn't go run around kicking ass. They made him into like this sideshow thing, where he was like
Yeah.
promoting the
Right.
war and promoting the soldiers and all that.
To get bonds, to have people buy bonds.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, wow, they're not even utilizing him for his talents. They're just kind of like making him this poster boy for soldiers.
I think if I had like one major issue with this movie, which it goes to show you how much better a director Joe Johnston is compared to the person who did the Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did was they had they took that movie and they put him in as Captain America and gave him this montage of actually when he started fighting in the war. But they spent so much time building up his his own character, like
Mm-hmm.
how Steve Rogers is.
Yes.
They spent time building up Steve Rogers, and then all those things that he did after. Like my favorite scene is the part where Tommy Lee Jones, I can't remember his name in the movie, but he throws the grenade, and
Oh yeah.
the tiny puny Steve Rogers jumps on top of it. Where like Tommy Lee Jones wanted that other like dickhead like other guy who was
Big jock
bullying.
guy. Yeah.
Right. and it was only Steve Rogers that jumped on it, and that was one of my favorite scenes of why the Doctor wanted Steve Rogers instead of everybody else, and I thought that was really great. But the reason why I bring that up is because that happened in World War II, and there's a lot of story that goes on for Captain America during that time frame when they introduced
Hmm.
Captain America in the comics, and they really brush over it to get him to the modern world. Like
Right.
if in the beginning they find the ship, at the end he wakes up, and there's not like just that one. Like there's no ongoing battle with Red Skull. There's only that one battle, and that was probably my only complaint, and our biggest complaint, one of our biggest complaints in the Wolverine was that they basically rushed it to get the adamantium claws onto him.
Right. Right. They didn't need to do that.
Right, and Wolverine actually, because of course 20th Century Fox has Wolverine, how fucking sick would it have been if you had a Logan in World War II fighting alongside Captain America, because that
I
actually happens in the
know.
comic books.
That would have been just amazing. Even if it was just a cameo, that
Yeah.
would have been
Yep.
amazing. Yeah. But so speaking of, you were talking a little bit about Steve Rogers being like the tiny Steve Rogers,
Right.
which
Hmm.
that they used this like technology that both I think shrunk him, and also I think there were scenes where when he was sitting down, it was actually a body double, but they CGI'd his head on the
Yeah,
body.
there was it wasn't really a CGI body. It was actually a real guy that they got,
Yeah.
because he was so tiny, and they CG'd his head and kind of, morphed it onto his body, which was if they didn't pull that off, like it was the movie was going to tank. They had to
Yeah.
pull that off.
Yeah. It would have
You
looked
know,
stupid.
it's I don't even know what the equivalent is, but it all banked on the fact that you had to believe that Chris Evans was this tiny like guy, and it really worked really well. They did a great job. They probably could do an even better job now.
Oh my
But
gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Really. I mean, it was hard to tell. I was like, wait a minute, how the f did they do that? Because um, there was that scene where like the guy's like heckling the movie screen, and he's like, dude, you need to
hmm
be quiet. And the guy
hmm
like takes him outside and beats the crap out of him, and he's just like, I could do this all day. Which he says that line again toward the end of the movie. Um, and I think he says that in the trailer. Yeah, in the new
he
Civil
says
War
it in the
trailer.
Civil War trailer, but doesn't he also say it in
Winter
the next
Soldier.
movie? Yeah, doesn't he say it in Winter Soldier?
God, I can't remember.
No,
I know
actually,
he's
no. He says it. He actually says he pulls that line from the beginning of the movie where he
yeah.
says, "I'm with you till the end."
Yeah, it's in the first movie. He says it a couple times, but yeah, that technology really really worked, and just it was extremely effective. And I think they use it a little bit again in Winter Soldier when he goes back to the base and he kind of has that memory of when he was
Hmm.
there, and it does it
Right.
again.
It was right after his parents died, I think, and Bucky is there telling him that line,
Right.
that he could just move in with Bucky, and Bucky says to him, "I'm there with you till the end," and then Steve Rogers says it back to him at the end of the movie.
Yeah. So I don't know, like his origin story was cool. Like you said, they kind of rushed him to get to the Avengers, which at the end of that movie, he crash lands the ship and he freezes. With the Tesseract though, like fell out over the ocean or something like that, didn't it?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, okay. And then they crash the ship. They freeze. Of course, for whatever reason, you never find Red Skull, but they found Captain America frozen. Um,
Well, the Red Skull was sucked into the Tesseract. Remember, like he was sucked into a different
oh
dimension.
shit, that's right. Well, which means shit, he could still be around, right?
Yeah,
Is he?
yeah, he could. Yeah, but I don't think Hugo Weaving wants. I think after the movie came out, he said like how like he thinks those movies are like stupid, which I don't understand these actors that get into these like big movies and like, and I think he said this before the Avengers came out and how much bigger like the Marvel powerhouse has gotten. But I don't think he's ever going to come back as the Red Skull, and I
Well,
don't
they
think
could
there's
get they could
another.
get anybody to play the Red Skull. Just do the voice.
Yeah,
They,
I don't think Captain America. I don't think Chris Evans has another standalone Captain America movie after this
I don't
in
think
his
so either. I
contract.
think
I
he's
think
done
he just
after Infinity
has.
Wars.
Yeah, I think so too. Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, moving on to the next movie that comes out 2 or 3 years later, and they up the ante in
Oh
The
my
Winter Soldier.
gosh.
So for us, we have mentioned before, like the best comic book movies don't play like a comic book movie. One of our favorite movies, both me and you, the Dark Knight that transcends comic books and really
Yes.
is like a cop thriller or cop drama.
Mm-hmm.
And the Winter Soldier is right on par with like a spy thriller, like right on par with like a James Bond movie, with how they just basically rewrite the entire Marvel universe right then and there
Yeah.
in one movie.
How cool was it that scene in the Winter Soldier where he's standing in the elevator and people and the guy after guy after guy is coming in there filling up the elevator, and
Yeah.
he's getting a little suspicious, and he sees the guy sweat behind him,
Hmm.
and then he says that little line of like, I'm going to give you an opportunity to get out of here or whatever, to leave
Yeah.
or to step
Yeah.
off the elevator. Yeah.
Oh,
And
that was such a good scene. And here's the great thing about that is that they teased that scene early on in like a TV spot or something, or like they released it online. I
yes.
remember seeing it kind of early, but there was still a lot of cool shit in that. And not to always bring up DC, but the one fight that we loved in Batman v Superman for Batman, trying to save Clark's mom.
Yeah.
They showed a lot of it, and there wasn't really a lot of like, oh my god moments after that.
Right.
But you didn't you thought you saw most of the Captain America fight in that TV spot or whatever it was, but when you actually saw it in the movie, it got even better.
Oh my gosh, it's such a confined space. They did a wonderful job like filming that, and like, and they were, they were kicking his butt a little bit, but he, he's strong. I mean, it shows just how strong he is, and he's able to get out of that. And he like jumps out of the elevator and like lands on the ground, and man, any normal human being would have killed him. Any normal human being, and
And then
he takes off
he takes out a fucking plane with by
with.
himself,
Oh yeah, driving on
basically.
the motorcycle, he throws the shield. That shield is so badass.
I love the way they use the shield in every movie. In every movie that they're in, I love the way they use the shield. Like that tracking shot that you've mentioned before in the Avengers when
Oh,
for Iron Man, and then they fucking right from the beginning of Avengers 2, Thor like
Thor
uses the
hits it.
hammer. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh my god. I love the way they
yeah.
use the hammer. So good.
I do too. And like now he's got like that magnetic thing on his arm, so when he throws it, it like totally comes back, and
Yeah.
smacks stick. And now he can stick it in front of his bike, stick it behind his back. That thing is pretty awesome. And I love the little just to go back to the first movie, but there was that shot, where he's getting beat up by that bully outside the theater. He picks up the trash can. And so
Yeah.
the trash can
It
top.
actually goes from a trash can to the star on the taxi cab's door, then finally to the shield.
Oh yeah, that's right. The cab door. I forgot
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, that was awesome.
It's almost like a little iteration of like different versions of his shield, because they again they do the round, trash can, but then they do the
Yeah.
star, the rectangle star,
Oh
or the
right. When
rectangle
he's
door with the star,
That's
and then they
right.
combine both of it together when you see the shield.
Yeah, I love that. Well, he sees it in Stark's warehouse, doesn't he, or in Stark's laboratory? He's like, "What's that?"
Yeah,
And
he's
he's
like,
like,
it's
"Oh, that's just a
nothing.
That's just a
Yeah,
prototype." And he picks it up, and Hallie Atwell like shoots it. He's like, "Oh yeah, it
yeah,
works great." It was awesome. So this movie, Winter Soldier, scored a 89% Rotten Tomatoes, which is it's pretty damn good. I kind of thought it was a little better than that. Because like
yeah. I did too.
at the time when I saw it, I said this is the best comic book movie that I've seen so far. Like this is just phenomenal because, like you said, it transcended the comic book movie and made it into something a spy thriller, but it had Captain America in it. And it was just like one of those movies where you could take your girlfriend to and say like, hey, trust me, watch this. It's pretty cool. Like the scene, fuck man, the action sequences were amazing in this thing. Like what about the scene with Nick Fury? In the car, just like driving along, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden he gets ambushed. That was badass. I mean, he's got just a crazy ass car that's got
Hmm.
like bulletproof. It's got like a,
It's got a
what do you
fucking
call it?
giant machine gun in it.
Yeah, it had like a machine gun that popped out of it. Like that was so super cool.
So you think when you said that you thought this was the best movie or comic book movie that you saw, so you like this better than The Dark Knight?
Better than what?
The Dark Knight.
I have to say, yeah. At the time, I don't know. Like at the time when I watched it, I was like, maybe because it was fresh, I was like, this is the best thing I've seen so far. Maybe out of the Marvel universe, I want to say. I don't think it's better than Dark Knight, but Definitely, it was the best Marvel movie. I could
So you
argue
liked
that.
it better than the Avengers because
Yes,
this
I
came
did.
after the
I
Avengers.
did.
Okay.
I did. Yeah, I did like it better.
I did. I think I can agree with that. I definitely don't think it's better than the Dark Knight. But like at the same time, it's a different animal too. Even though as how serious the Winter Soldier is, it still somehow seems fun. Like there's
Yes,
something about like don't get me wrong, the Dark Knight is just a great fucking movie. But it's still to this day one of in the top like the top or the top two comic book movies I've ever fucking seen. But
yeah.
it was dark. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
not fun. And but that movie was fucking great. And
Yes.
even though The Winter Soldier was, I can agree with you, the best Marvel movie to that point, it still wasn't dark. Like the
No.
shit that happened to it, the shit that happened in it was dark or, serious and foreboding and coming from a really bad place. But it still had some kind of fun to it. Like
Yeah.
it didn't like like even the little Gary Shandling parts. When Falcon was there, even opening the movie where he is lapping.
The banter.
Um,
Yeah, between him and
yeah,
Black Widow.
yeah, that part, but he's also lapping Falcon. Well, he's not Falcon at that point in time, but he's lapping him in the beginning of the movie. He's like behind.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
on your
Like he's
left.
running like fucking like 5 miles. Yeah, exactly. So like just little shit like that just made it more fun. But then when the shit hits the fan, it you can feel it, but you feel differently about it, and it's
Yeah.
not the same as
It's
in the
not
Dark Knight.
stressful. Like I was stressed out watching The Dark Knight. Like it stresses you out.
Yeah,
Every
yeah,
time
because you don't know
that
what the hell's gonna
weird
happen.
yeah, every time that weird tone would happen, you're like, "Oh shit, the Joker's coming." Like and you got all tense. But this movie like Winter Soldier like I said it was fun. You knew the outcome was like Captain America, yeah, he's going to be alive and he's going to make it at the end, but the repercussions of all that shit that happened, like you find out Hydra, has been inside Shield all along, and that uh, and the computer was pulling the strings the entire time of that scientist that's been dead for years. So there was a
That
lot
was
of
in
like
the
a
first
lot of
movie.
really yeah, there's just a lot of really cool shit going on, and Robert Redford kind of gave it some levity, some strength, because his acting and all that stuff. He's like a presence. I liked his character. They killed him off too quickly, but that's okay. Um,
So spoilers for those two movies, by the way.
but well, I said spoilers in the beginning, yeah,
Oh, you did?
but yeah, I said
I
this
thought you
this
said spoilers for
podcast.
Civil War.
Well, shit. Everything that we do is spoilerific, but
But it
so
doesn't count
don't be
because,
too
like,
mad.
yeah, because, like, well, the Civil War comic book has been out for a really long time, and these two
It
movies
has.
have been out for a really long time. So it's not in that 10-year span, I don't think. For if you haven't seen it, like if it's been 10 years, I don't think we have to say spoilers, but it's getting kind of close.
Who knows? 5-second rule. If something falls on the floor, you have 5 seconds to pick it up and eat it. I don't think that's a real rule, though, honestly. But
No, because if you drop a French fry in a bad as shit, like you're not gonna fucking pick it up after 2 seconds and eat it.
right, right. If you drop your Civil War comic in a in a pile of shit,
Yeah, it doesn't matter how many
don't
seconds
don't
afterwards
pick it
you're
up.
fucked.
Yeah, don't pick it up. Just leave it there. You're screwed. We're gonna spoil this for you. So I had the pleasure of reading that comic finally. I know you've read it a long time ago, and then you recently picked it back up to kind of prepare for the movie that's coming out. I know you mentioned to me a lot before I even read it that it looked way different than the actual movie that's about to come out. And one of the biggest differences that you and I have kind of talked about is how it's going to start. Now, in the comic book, there's like these B or C tiered superheroes that have like a reality show, and they're recording themselves busting bad guys and running around and helping people and all that stuff. And so now they come upon this house that's housed some baddies in there, and one of the guys' name I think is Nitro, right? Like he can self destruct, like blow up or like a huge
Basically, like a
explosion kind of
nuclear
thing.
weapon almost. He can blow up like a bomb.
Yeah, and so they're beating up the guys in there, and they kick him out of there, and he flies across the street, and he hits a school bus. And when the guy goes over to grab him, whenever he like detonates, And of course, it kills half the. Doesn't it kill a bunch of the film crew and also some of those superheroes and some of the bad guys?
Yeah, it kills most of the superheroes, the bad guys, and basically destroys the school with the teachers and the kids in it. Almost like 900 something people
Yeah,
total
so Dev just
die from
kills.
this.
I mean, that's horrible. That's a bad imagery, but it's effective in that that's when the government steps in and goes enough. Like we need to have a superhero, um, a superhuman registration act. We need to uh, make these people more accessible. Like we need to know who you are, what power you have, where you live, what your real name is, all that shit. You just like if you're a sex offender, you got to register.
Right.
So you got to register. Now that's where the conflict happens because Captain America, this was interesting to me, but Captain America is the one saying no, I don't. I don't want that. And then Iron Man, ironically enough, is the guy that's saying like, no, we need to be put in check. In fact, I think Tony Stark or Robert Downey Jr. says that in the trailers. Like, we need to be put in check. We need to,
Be held accountable.
yeah, be accountable, disclose all this information, whatever, we'll be fine. You know, and Captain America is totally against it, and that's where the conflict starts. Um, Now, you've also mentioned to me that Spider-Man was a huge part of the Civil War comics, and so when I read it, I was really surprised at how much like he was kind of like the tipping point almost. Like
For both sides.
yeah, he like played a huge role.
I think it's important for everybody to know also that in the movie itself there's what, like 12 superheroes, right? Around there? Maybe
Yeah,
12, 10 or 12.
something like that.
In the comic books, it takes the entire Marvel universe. Everyone is involved here, and the only people that actually are not involved are the X-Men. And I think that's it, right? X-Men.
Yeah, and they
Um,
actually show up in it. They just say we don't want anything to do
yeah,
with
they
this.
they basically say they don't want anything in it. And there's a really interesting line where Tony Stark is trying to recruit them, and if you don't read the comics, you don't know that at this point in time, Emma Stone and not Emma Stone, Jesus, Emma Frost and
Hmm.
Scott Summers, Cyclops, is actually the head of Professor X's school. I think Professor X
Yes.
is dead at that point in time, and she pulls the shit of, and this is going back, like you have to know comic books when she throws this in Tony Stark's face when she pulls out like when the Sentinels were built. Where were the Avengers
Yeah.
when Genosha was being destroyed? Where were the Avengers? Like, she's like, we don't want any part of your war or any part of this. What's happening? Like, the X-Men are just fine where we are, on this safe land.
When I
So
read that part, it reminded me of the Two Towers. The Lord of the Rings movie because
with
or
the
the
Ents.
books. Yeah, because he's like, where was or no wait, sorry, it was Return of the King, because they asked Theoden, they're like, hey, we need to go help Minas Tirith. We need to go help those people. And he's like, well, where were they when the West would fall? Like, where were they?
Oh,
Like, he had
right.
that whole speech. And I'm reading Civil War and I'm picturing Theoden giving this big speech about, we're not going to help those people. Where were they when we were suffering, and all that shit. But they ended up turning around and going to help those people. But in this, in the comic book, X-Men are like, we're good. No, we don't need this shit. You go do your own thing. We're going to do ours.
And so the reason why I bring that up is because it basically rewrites the entire Marvel universe in the comic book realm. And
Hmm.
again, they pick Captain America, they take his solo movie, and they do something that's going to rewrite the Marvel universe moving forward before, this giant story that they've been doing for what, 10, 15 years now, that will end in Infinity Wars and start a whole new
Yes.
version of the Avengers, or the whole new version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So Spider-Man, I was like, this was before we knew those Sony leaks was coming out. I said, I don't know what they're going to do about Spider-Man, because like I told you,
I remember
Spider-Man's a
that.
huge role, and it never. And I told you before the Sony leaks came out, and I was like, Spider-Man's a huge role. Like, what the hell are they going to do here? The Fantastic Four actually have a big role in Civil War as well. We'll get to that in a
Yeah.
little bit. But basically, in the beginning of Civil War, it's Spider-Man who decides like, I want to be held accountable. And what's crazy is how much respect the entire Marvel universe has for Spider-Man, basically
Hmm.
because he's been doing this since he was fucking a kid, since he was 15 years old. And out of everybody, not a lot of people in the Marvel universe really know who Spider-Man really is. But
Right.
he decides to pick Tony Stark, and he actually this was a big deal. He actually reveals himself to the entire world um as Peter Parker. Now,
Yeah, just pulls the mask right off, right in
right,
the
now
press conference.
if you've read a lot of Spider-Man comic books, how close Peter Parker has been found out before, and the people that he loves in the Spider-Man comic books are always in danger. And these are the people that and these are the villains that actually don't know who Peter Parker
Right.
is. So it's kind of crazy that he would choose Tony Stark because, again, if you read the comic books, Spider-Man or Peter Parker has always loved Tony Stark. I mean, it would basically he would basically be Tony Stark if he had the money because they're on the same like genius level.
Oh yeah, they're
Both of them
both
are.
really smart. Them and Banner, all three of them are extremely
Banner and
intelligent.
also Reed Richards.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so moving a little bit forward, we'll get to the Reed Richards right now. Is Reed Richards is building this prison for the superheroes in the negative zone, which I don't think is going to happen in this movie, but
I don't think so
mainly because
either. I
Reed
think
Richards is in it.
they're gonna build that containment system though, because you see it in the trailer, but it's not going to be in some other dimension though.
Yeah, yeah. So Reed Richards does something even worse. So in the comic books, Thor is dead when Civil War
Yes.
comes out. There's no new Thor in it yet at this point in time. So what you don't know, reading the seven issue comic, is that at during the Fantastic Four comic books, you see him working, and you're wondering what the hell it is. So what ends up happening is that Tony Stark had actually stolen some or kept some of Thor's hair,
Yeah.
and him and Reed Richards decide to bring Thor back to life as a cyborg. Um,
So he's part flesh and part cyborg. Is that they
yeah,
basically
yeah,
they
he's
basically
like
clone
an
him?
yeah, yeah, and and Thor ends up killing the hell's his name,
Is it Goliath?
Goliath. Right, he ends up putting a lightning bolt through Goliath's chest, and
Right, right.
basically that stops the first fight. It gives Captain America's side
They're
a
like
time to
shit
regroup.
just got real.
Yeah, because it's like, and somebody's supposed to die in the Civil War movie, but somebody's going to take the place of Goliath, and that's what flips Spider-Man because immediately after, because nobody knew that Reed Richards and Tony Stark were building a Thor. They
Right.
built him to change the tide of the fight, and nobody signed up for murder because that's basically what that Thor cyborg did, and that changes a lot of people's minds about what side are they really fighting on, because at the end of the day they're supposed to be superheroes and they don't kill.
Right.
And now all of a sudden your leader Tony Stark builds this thing that kills one of the more respected superheroes in Goliath, and Peter Parker is like, what the hell is going on? Like, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for murder. I signed
Right.
up just to protect the people that I love, to do the right thing, and to try to get these people, these other superheroes, to register. I didn't sign up for murder. And again, like I said to you, Spider-Man turns the tide again because, and that, remember that brutal fight when he actually decides to leave? He gets the
Yes.
shit beat out of
He
him
gets the
because, again,
crap beat out of him.
so not only does Tony Stark in the comic books decide that it's bad enough that I just built like this Thor cyborg that just killed Goliath, but I think it's also a good idea to recruit villains to fight for us, and the villains are the ones that track down Spider-Man.
Well, his intentions were to, again, all bad things always happen with good intentions, but his intention was to anybody that didn't want to register, okay, you're going to jail. You're going to go in this containment area and you're going to stay there until you decide, to hey, you need to do this. And so that was his intentions, but then he started like doing everything and anything he could to get the job done, to the point where, yeah, hiring supervillains, someone like a Suicide Squad or something, to go and grab the superheroes and put them in this containment. Well, Goliath dies, and then they beat the shit out of Spider-Man. Like, all this stuff starts happening, and then it kind of culminates to this huge thing at the end.
Hmm. So the supervillains, like that fight with Spider-Man was really fucking brutal because
It
they
was
almost kill
brutal.
him. And how badass was the Punisher in that scene?
Oh,
Like all of
that's
a sudden,
right.
like all of a sudden, he just fucking kills the two villains and saves Spider-Man.
I'm glad I called that guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you've been listening to the podcast, you get that joke. But anyway, yeah, he just kind of pops it. Yeah, he just shows up with Spider-Man in his arms, and everyone's like, what's the Punisher doing here? Like, nobody likes him.
No, especially Steve Rogers.
So how so do you so it culminates into that thing, and how does this thing end? How does the Civil War kind of wrap up toward the end?
Well, what happens is Tony Stark thinks that he was slick in putting a spy on Captain America's team, but they already knew the whole time, and they think they set a trap. But in reality, the Captain America team was really setting a trap for the other people, for Stark's team, and they end up teleporting both sides in the middle of Manhattan. They basically pull a Man of Steel,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of fighting in the negative zone or the negative zone, and in that confined containment security area, they take the fight onto the streets, and the buildings are being destroyed. I'm guessing it's Manhattan because it always takes place somewhere in New York. They're basically destroying the city. And at one point in time, towards the end of the battle, Captain America has Iron Man dead to rights, and all of a sudden, citizens jump onto Captain America
Mm-hmm.
and tell him to stop, and basically, say like Steve Rogers is like, I don't want to hurt you or whatever. I don't want to do any harm. And I think one of the citizens is like, what do you think you've been doing already? And then he just takes a look at everybody fighting each other,
Right.
and he just stops. He does what Tony Stark would never do, which is look at morally what's going on, and say, my feelings aside, it's morally right. It's more right to be morally right than it is to just be right.
Right.
And he just basically stops and gives himself in. And I guess maybe that might be a little anticlimactic the way that I'm describing it, but if you had seen the panels that they had
Oh, the fight is
drawn.
brutal. And you could see in the commercials for the movie coming out that they took some elements of the comic book and made, because obviously there's a big battle coming filmed at that airport. There is something big coming.
It's nowhere near what it is in. I mean, just think about every single Marvel superhero minus the X-Men, and that's who's fighting.
Right,
Everybody
right, right,
except
right.
for Thor, because who's dead. But I mean, even Prince Namor comes in to help Captain
That's
America.
right. That's right. He with
So
his all his little minions.
and Black Panther ends up actually fighting on Captain America's side as well, because Tony Stark had inadvertently created the Thor
Right,
cyborg or
right.
clone and killed Goliath, and that was because actually in the Civil War comics, Black Panther, who marries Storm in the comic books, then in this time frame, he wants to stay away from it. He wants to stay away because he just wants to stay in Wakanda. But then when he finds out that Goliath is murdered, he switches. He says, "I'm going to fight," and he fights. Him and Storm fight on the side of Captain America. So Captain America was about to win in that fight, and if it wasn't for the New York citizens jumping on him,
Yeah,
it would have been over.
it would have been over with. Yeah, they definitely, just by watching the trailers, they've taken some liberties. Obviously, I don't think they could film this frame by frame because there's just too
No,
many. There's a lot of kooky things going on there, and so it looks like they filmed it in a way that made sense. I think you and I had some theories about how Civil War movies gonna begin. Instead of exploding a school, I think we were talking about how um, it's gonna blow up some sort of important building with some important people in it. And I
yeah,
think
almost
that's
like it looked like the UN. I think it looks like Black Panther's father is killed,
Yeah,
in the
which that would
trailer.
make sense.
Um, so that's how he gets the mantle passed on to him. But thinking about this right now, like thinking about the fact that this is the movie version of the Superhero Registration Act, I'm wondering how Daredevil, Jessica Jones don't know about this thing going on.
Yeah, well,
And I'm wondering
man,
if they're
that's a
I
good
wonder if they're
point.
holding this like I wonder if there's I wouldn't be surprised if it happened, but I would be shocked if it really like if I saw it on screen, like if I saw Daredevil, because Daredevil is actually in the fight in the
Right.
comic
So
books.
is Luke Cage
Luke
as
Cage is
well,
there too. I don't think I saw Jessica Jones there.
or Iron Fist. I don't think.
Um, I'm not sure
I don't.
about Iron
I don't
Fist. I
remember
can't
he was in
remember.
there.
Definitely Luke Cage. Definitely Daredevil. The Punisher is definitely in it.
I don't remember Ant-Man in it either. But was the Wasp in it? I seem to remember the
No, no, no,
Wasp.
no. Ant Man was in it. He was called Yellow Jacket. He in the comic
Oh,
books he's Yellow Jacket now.
gotcha,
So, but yeah, Hank Pym is in it, not not the Paul Rudd one.
gotcha.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
there's just a lot of people in it, and it definitely took some liberties and changed some things around. But if they make it, I mean, if the story makes sense, like from what I've been hearing, how this movie's tracking, is that in the what 90 something percentile right now. Some
the
people
last
have
time I
actually
checked, it was 98.
98%. Holy shit. And I've heard, like, I've just been, in fact, I think today another article came out, although it's Kevin Smith who loves everything. But the consensus is some of the big filmmakers that are watching these movies are saying it's the best Marvel movie to date. They really upped the ante again, and juggled these characters around, but still at the core, it's a Captain America movie. Um,
Yeah,
all about
I just
friendships.
hope the Russo brothers don't blow their load on this movie and give us a shitty Infinity War movie or
Yeah,
movies
well,
actually.
I don't know. Like Infinity War Part One to me would feel like a because there's going to be fallout from this movie, a big
Yeah,
big fallout.
yeah, because at that point in time they've never faced anything. I mean,
Anything that big.
Thanos has the strength of Hulk. He has the power of Doctor Strange, basically. Like
Hmm.
Thanos is almost unstoppable in the comic books, and more than likely he's almost unstoppable in the movie because there's
Hmm.
just Thanos is just a very all powerful being. I think he's like a demigod too, right? I can't remember.
Yeah, I believe so. I read very little about his origin, but he's definitely got a screw loose. You know.
Yeah,
Um,
him and Daredevil,
I think
not
he's played
Daredevil,
by.
him and Deadpool him and Deadpool actually
Yeah.
have ties together because they're both trying. Um, Dare, Deadpool, uh, because he can't be killed. Basically, he's almost like Wolverine,
Hmm.
or maybe even his healing factor might be as the same as Wolverine's, or maybe more powerful. I'm not sure, but he always is visited by death, and she's a woman in
Yeah.
the Marvel universe, and
Yeah.
Thanos is always trying to court death, to lure death over to his side so that he can be all
Yeah.
powerful. So it's kind of ironic that a character like Deadpool, if you've seen Deadpool, has a tie to Thanos, this all powerful godlike person. Um, but that's just a side note for non comic book readers.
But this movie, the Civil War that comes out in a week or 4 days if you're listening to this, it's tracking extremely well. Like the word of mouth has been ridiculous. Marvel has no problem putting a movie out early because I think it's already done money or internationally, or it's already played several times over the last couple weeks. So it's tracking very, very well, and it's going to do some huge, huge numbers. But it is going to also change the Marvel universe. It's going to change. A lot of things are going to change, and I think the next movie, or at least when Thor Ragnarok comes out, that's going to change it equally as well too. On the other end, uh, be, but I think in between that we've got Doctor Strange, so and another Spider-Man movie.
think the next one is Doctor Strange coming out in November, I believe.
Yeah, and then I think it's Spider Man, and then I think it's Ragnarok, Thor,
Yeah,
and then
I
Black
don't know
Panther,
how
and then Infinity War.
Spider-Man, like, it's called Spider-Man Homecoming, so I'm not sure what happens, like what's going to happen with Spider-Man in his movie, like how it's going to tie into this, because in the comic books, Civil War, he's already married to Mary Jane. Um, they're already together, like they're already married. He's in his 20s or something like that, 20s or 30s. Can't remember. I think 20s. But in
Yeah,
this version, they're basically pulling him back to high school. So it's a lot
right.
different now. So I don't know how this is gonna happen with the Infinity Wars, because I don't know how Spider-Man as a 15-year-old is going to fight Thanos.
I don't know either. But I do know, like recently, I think it was confirmed that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be in the Spider Man movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's got the best fucking gig.
um,
In all the action sequences, he just has to sit there and talk into a TV, or I'm sorry, camera, and he gets paid the
well,
most out of
I
anybody.
just well, he's the tech guy too. So I mean, if he pumps some money and helps him out with a suit or the web slingers or something like that, or maybe he's got some sage advice, the old man and the young kid. I don't know. Like just whatever Robert Downey Jr.'s in, dude, I'm excited about. Like I don't even care. I just get giddy when they start putting him in other people's movies. I just get all excited.
I wonder if Civil War is going to end like the comic books, where Captain America just stops. Like, I wonder if they're gonna take that ending and change it a little bit.
They might. I wonder if a major character dies in this movie. I had a feeling that what's her name? So this is even more spoilers, but Agent Carter probably is going to pass away. There's like a scene, I've seen the trailers, TV spots where Captain America is carrying a coffin and he's crying, and I'm like, well, that must be someone that's close to him. And then I had to think about it, and I think it's probably Agent Carter, because she was pretty old in Winter Soldier. She looked like she was, gonna croak there. Um, so there's probably going to be a couple of deaths in this movie. One, just a normal, normal, like you're old and die kind of thing. And then the next one will be something, something will happen. One of the characters, who knows who, will be killed. And then that will probably stop the whole thing or escalate it. I don't know. Like you can't get a read. Like when you watch the trailer for this thing, you can't get a read on when the fights are or what's going on. And I kind of like that. I like being in the dark versus like Batman v Superman trailer where the whole movie's played out in front of you and you know everything. Um, this movie's got me guessing. Like I don't know what's going to happen. I've just been hearing that the battles are amazing, the pacing's great. Is it at the core? It's still a Captain America movie. All these things, and it's just got me. And then the 98% Rotten Tomato thing, 2 weeks out or 1 week out now is like that's a fucking good sign, man. That it's going to be an awesome movie.
A
You
lot of
know,
the reviewers also have been sticking it to DC. There's been
yeah,
a couple of reviews that I saw that were like, saying this is how you do a movie when you put a ton of superheroes in it, basically. And there's like, again, we said like 10 or 12 superheroes in this movie, and DC only had 3,
was that
and
like
they
a
fucked it up.
middle finger to DC? Is that what that was?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people are just like really a lot of people are turned away by the fact that you have the 3 most iconic superheroes in both universes in that movie, and it tanked really bad. And now you got all these B characters like Captain America, and or not Captain America, but like Iron Man and Ant Man, Hawkeye. I mean, fucking Hawkeye's popular. Black
Yeah,
Widow. Black Panther really isn't an upper echelon superhero in the Marvel universe. I mean, the most upper echelon superhero in that entire movie is Spider Man,
right.
and they just got him back. But because of the way the movies have been playing and how well the movies are, everybody thinks these are like A-list superheroes, but they're fucking not. All their A-list superheroes belong to other people. Movie-wise, like Fox owns the X-Men
And
and
Fantastic Four. Hmm.
anything mutant-wise. Anything mutant-wise, Fox owns it.
Right.
You know, So, and they just got Daredevil back and all those, street level superheroes. People think that all the things that Marvel are doing, those are all their A-list superheroes. They're not.
No.
They're not. So, it just goes to show you like what happens to the popular opinion or the public opinion about something when it's done really well.
Well,
Um,
they had the time to put it together. They did it very well. Batman v Superman's like kind of like DC's in a rush, and then of course they do this thing where they do origin story all over again too. I'm just or like Bruce Parents is how they get killed and how he turned into Batman. It's like we fucking know that. We've seen it 50 times.
there was that great article that I sent to you, or you sent it to me. I can't remember, but it was a DC fanboy who, you know, wrote a letter to Zack Snyder saying like, you you turned my favorite superhero and the best superhero out of everyone, the first superhero basically, and made him Batman, and how Marvel basically took Captain America and made him Superman.
But, oh
Like
yeah, that's a
like
perfect
everything
analogy.
everything that DC was trying to do with Superman, trying to make him like question whether or not he wants to be your hero. They did like Marvel did that with Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
and and didn't make him like this like I don't even know how to describe Superman and Batman v Superman. He's kind of a I don't even know. He's like
It's
kind of
emo.
like an
It's
emo
emo.
punk.
It's emo Superman, dude.
Yeah, it's just bad. And Marvel actually pulls the brooding, I'm not sure I'm on the right side type thing, but at the end of the day, I'm going to do what's right for me or what I think is right for morally what's right, and that's in the Winter Soldier. And if they gave me that Superman, I would have been happy.
Yeah, absolutely. They really did a bang up job creating these characters and also letting the actors create these characters. Like I cannot in a million years imagine anyone else as Iron Man any more than I can imagine anyone as Indiana Jones. It's just so iconic and
Yeah, and you
so
know what's great? Again, going back to like the character development of Steve Rogers and even Tony Stark too,
mhm.
you because they spent that time developing that character, you understand where both sides are coming from. Like why Steve Rogers is going after Bucky. You know it because on multiple. Not only is his best friend growing up, but he's the only ties that he has back to his old life.
Right.
Is the only one. Agent Carter wasn't part of the super serum. Like she didn't have that formula put inside of her, so she's old and probably dead
Mhm.
in the movie. So like that exactly why he's going after Bucky.
Dude, they've spent 8 years. They've spent 8 years developing to get to this point. Like they've spent all this time developing these characters so that when you get to this point in Civil War, it's going to be heartbreaking to watch these people fight each other. And and
Right.
and
They
and
even build that with Tony Stark. They started that in Iron Man 3, even though that movie sucked. But they started in Iron Man 3 where, he starts questioning like, is he doing the right thing? Like doing this stuff, like he's hurting a lot of people. And then they
yeah.
play it again and they play that part again in Avengers 2 when
Yes.
he's like when he, Scarlet Witch kind of messes with his brain and it really doesn't show him anything bad. She just shows him like everybody dead and that he couldn't stop it.
It was his fault and he could have stopped it. And also you see the conflict starting with him and Steve Rogers during
From the
that
very first Avengers, yeah.
yeah.
Well, from the very first
Oh,
Avengers.
that's right. That's right. There's some conflict there, and it kind of builds over the next few movies. Like the Age of Ultron. It's definitely apparent in that scene where they're outside chopping wood that they're at odds. They both want they both want peace, but they want to go about it a different way.
Right.
And because Steve Rogers is coming from the I'm a soldier, and what's his name is just like I want shortcuts. Just want to get it over with. I want,
Yeah.
and so that's where Tony Stark keeps fucking things up, and Rogers is having to pick up the pieces. So it's going to be very interesting to see these characters choose sides, and from what I've heard about the script and the story, is that because they've allowed time for character development over this time, that when you see the movie, you understand both sides. And it's very difficult as an audience member even to choose a side. You're like, well, shit, they're both right, you know? And so I'm interested to see
That's a little
that.
different. That's a little different than the Civil War comic book
It is.
because up until the point where you see Thor and Thor kills Goliath, you're on both sides. You
Right.
understand both arguments.
Oh, yeah.
And
They
it
make
isn't
it.
until that happens, for me anyway, I don't know about anybody else, but it isn't until that happens that you start questioning Tony Stark. And then even more when he starts recruiting villains.
Right. And I don't think they're going to go. I would be very surprised if they do that in this movie. I don't. I think they're going to ride that edge in the middle the whole time, you know, if they were smart. Anytime someone goes over the top, then that just kind of like, as the audience member, you're like, well, that was over the top. I'm going to go with this other guy. I think, I mean, if they were smart, I think they're going to ride that fence all the way through where you're just like not sure. Like, God damn, like he's right. No, 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 he's right too. Oh, no, he's right. You know, and then when they go to fight, you're just like, oh my God, you know, like these two friends.
It makes it for a lot easier to do what you just said, to have that fight at the very end, but it also makes it a lot easier for later on because you don't have to spend too much time them mending too many fences, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it depends on who dies and who's the culprit of who dies.
Right.
Because it's very clear cut who the fuck's fault it is. It's fucking Reed Richards and Tony Stark in the comic book.
Well, yeah, I'm wondering if they're even going to do that. I hope they don't cop out and don't kill anyone because obviously, I think Wakanda. I think Chitala, is it Chitala? Black Panther. Black Panther's
Right.
dad is going to die, and I think Agent Carter's going to die. I really do. I think those are the two.
Yeah, but
deaths.
okay, so let's see if our crystal balls are working right.
Okay.
So here's what we think is safe. I think is safe. I think Iron Man's safe, Spider Man, Vision, Scarlet Witch,
Black Widow.
Ant Man, Black Widow. You think Black Widow's safe?
Yeah, I
Well,
think.
this is who I think is safe.
If anyone's going to get it, I would probably have to point to Hawkeye. and not just because, and I mean for so many different reasons.
Everybody fucking wants to kill that guy.
Well, it's not that I want to, but it's like kind of like when Quicksilver died, I was like, oh man, that sucks, but I wasn't like heartbroken over it. But if Hawkeye died, I would be like, oh man, that it would hit hard. It would really hit hard
because of how much they built up his background.
And that's why I think they did that.
Well, who else is there? Who am I missing?
But see, that's why I think they did that. That's why I think it's Hawkeye. Because
who am I missing? Am I missing somebody from the fight?
I don't know. There's Black Panther. He ain't gonna die because he's got a movie coming out. Thor, Hulk, they're not even there.
Right.
Ant-Man's not gonna die because he's got his own movie coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, they could. I mean, I don't know. They could kill.
I don't think it's Rhodey. I don't think it's Rhodey because they showed it in the trailer. That's my only evidence
that would
it's
be
not Rhodey.
that would suck if it was Rhodey.
I would be
We're like,
pissed
God
if it
damn
was
it.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you showed it in the fucking trailer.
Yeah, they could do the cop out thing where they're like someone gets seriously injured and almost dies, where they're like, oh shit, we went too far. But oh man, I hope they don't
think it's
going to
be Bucky.
I
don't think it's going to be Bucky.
I don't think so either. What if they kill Cap at the end of this thing? Is he contracted to be in Infinity Wars 1 and 2?
I think so. I think he's got 2 more movies.
Okay.
So for anybody else again who doesn't read the comic books, in the comic books, Captain America I think is still dead at this point in time, and he's killed not at the end of the 7th issue of Civil War. He's killed a few issues later where he's actually being led into I think a jailhouse for a court or something like that. And he's actually killed by Agent 36. Is that her number?
Yeah, and it's by these. And here's the weird thing, folks, is that no one ever seriously dies in the comic books. They always come back. But he's shot, and you think he's dead. And I think he comes back later on, and it had something to do with like time bullets or something like that. Like he got shot by time bullets. So like they were able to do some wacky, heebie-jeebie mojo, whatever. And like they were able to bring him back like later on, but
I think it's Zemo.
It's by Red
who's
Skull.
Actually in Captain. I think it's Zemo who's actually in Civil War.
He is.
I think he actually. I can't remember. I wish I'd read up on it again before this podcast. But I think it's Zemo that mind controls or does something to Agent 36, who is actually the niece of Agent Carter, I think.
Yes.
She ends up pulling the trigger and killing Captain America, and so she had
Oh,
no idea what she was
I
doing.
completely forgot about her. She's in the Civil War movie as I think Captain America's love interest or something, isn't she? The blonde,
Yep. Yeah.
his neighbor. Well, she could
The Winter
possibly
Soldier.
she
Yeah.
could get killed too. You know?
She might be, or she might be the one that kills Captain America at the end of this, and they bring him back for Infinity War or something.
Yeah, maybe. That's
Maybe it's like Tony Stark. Maybe it's like Tony Stark brings him back, somehow saves his life.
very
So that would be
possible.
pretty badass.
That would be
Oh
pretty
man, how
badass.
fucking awesome! How fucking awesome would it be if I said this like now? I would fucking release this like clip all over the fucking place if I called it.
What if you like designed like this, like he's able to save his life, but he's on borrowed time. So like he lives long enough through Infinity Wars to die again at the end, and then
Yeah.
Bucky or somebody has to be Captain America
Or Falcon. I think it's Falcon,
Falcon.
who's Captain America right now. Actually,
Because right now they're
it's
working
kind of
on
weird.
they're working on Phase 4 right now, and I don't think Captain
Yeah.
America or Iron Man's going to be back in Phase 4. I think they're going to finish off and then take. Although today I read somewhere that Robert Downey Jr. did say, like he kind of retracted his former statement, said, I want to keep doing these for as long as I can. So
He probably just fucking saw his last check from Civil War.
$40 million plus 15% back in. It's crazy.
Well, if you're keeping up, if you're not keeping up with the comic books, so Captain America's dead. It's Falcon who's the new Captain America. Thor's dead.
Yep.
It's actually Jane Austen who is it Jane Austen? Is that her last name?
I don't remember. That sounds like a novel.
Jane. I just know her first name is Jane.
Yeah.
And Jane's the new Thor. Hulk. Where the fuck is Hulk in this? I think those are the two major players out of the Avengers in the cinematic universe. Those two players are gone, and it's Falcon that takes over Captain America, and Jane takes over Thor. But Jane in the movie version, Natalie Portman, doesn't want to do him anymore.
Right.
So she's done.
She's done, and I think that's why in Ragnarok they're actually a new actress is showing up for that. She was.
Oh, really?
She was Creed's girlfriend in the movie Creed.
No. She's not going to play the new Jane. She's actually playing Valkyrie, I think.
No. She's not playing
like
Jane.
that.
She's just playing his new love interest. I think. I don't think she's.
Oh, okay.
Jane. No, Jane's gone. Jane's not going to be around. And if that leads to Planet Hulk, I'm going to be so all kinds of excited because that storyline is fucking phenomenal. It's so out there. But if they could do Guardians of the Galaxy, they could do it. Yeah.
Like basically, he's gonna be sitting there in that like Hulk suit. I don't know if you've ever seen the behind the scenes stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's just gonna be sitting there in that Hulk like CG suit the whole time. Like it's
well, they'll probably do performance.
He's Hulk
capture.
the whole time.
Yeah, he is. But they could do performance capture. It would be really interesting. Seriously, like that storyline is super cool, and it kind of, I mean, he's gonna be with Thor, and that storyline he could end up stranded on that planet or whatever, but then somehow get out when it's time to come back to Infinity Wars. But I think that's a little out there, but shit, one can dream. We've wanted a Hulk movie since Ruffalo took over the part because he's the best Hulk that they've ever had. So
yeah, I think so. I think so too. But I don't think. I mean, the Incredible Hulk movie with Norton wasn't that great.
Yeah,
but it wasn't bad. It was way better than Hulk.
Yes.
And I can't believe Ang Lee actually made that movie.
Well, when they gave it to him, he probably said, "I want to make this." Like he literally made it like a comic book because some of the way he edited it, it showed pages and things like that. Did really weird shit. But
that part was cool, but everything else outside of that sucked.
Yeah, the Incredible Hulk was more like the TV show. It borrowed from the TV show, and Ed Norton did a lot of rewrites and all that, and it's more like
it's not bad. It's not bad.
Okay.
But for the first time, when you see Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, they actually capture Mark Ruffalo's likeness, which was different than all the other ones.
Absolutely.
So that made it more personable, but they actually got Hulk in this movie or in these versions.
Yes.
I don't think they really got Hulk in the other versions.
Oh man!
I mean that end fight with Abomination was pretty good.
Talk about
but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything compared to the Avengers Hulk one.
But you know how we talked about how in the Batman v Superman review how Superman, he it doesn't really do a good job showing his conflict. But fuck, man, they did an awesome job showing the conflict within Mark Ruffalo's character, Bruce Banner and Hulk. Like his conflict was just so like the acting, the script, everything for Hulk it's pitch perfect because he is so conflicted. He can't have a family. He can't have a normal life. Like Black Widow wants to be with him so bad, and he's just like he's contemplating him at the same time. He's like, nah, this will never work. I can't have kids. I can't, we can't live a normal life because I'm going to Hulk out and kill things and blow shit up. And so, like, what about in the middle of sex? Like, I Hulk out, like, you're going to be dead, And
Yeah.
so
You can only have sex with Wonder Woman.
They captured his conflict so perfectly, especially in Age of Ultron. It was very apparent. And then you look at Batman v Superman, you're just like, man, it must be shitty to be Superman. But they didn't show that. Just one scene where everything blows up and everyone dies, and he's standing there amongst the flames. But that was, it was so quick in and out. But like all throughout Age of Ultron, they really did a good job with the conflict and Bruce.
Going by what you said, like they actually show how fun it is sometimes to be Hulk.
Yeah, absolutely,
like,
they do.
Where like there's no fun in being Superman. I mean, the fucking guy can fly.
Yeah,
that alone.
That's what I loved about the Chris Reeve ones is he. I mean, he's so charming. Like when he saves somebody, he's like, "Hey, I got you." "Hey, how's it going?" He's very like, just
matter of fact about it. Like it's not a big deal, but he's like very friendly. Like he just gave you like a scoop of ice cream.
He's basically a Boy Scout with super duper powers that But this new incarnation of Superman is the opposite of that. Hey, whatever. Oh fuck, I gotta save that guy.
He's like that rich kid who like can't stand his rich parents because his rich parents are fucking awesome and give him everything.
He's
like, oh, it's like, you're growing up, you're like, yeah, I got some, clothes and, I got one video game. Like, what'd you get? My fucking asshole parents got me a car.
Right.
They got me a car and got me like a fucking Blu-ray player, and they gave me like a giant 70-inch TV. Those assholes.
Yeah, this Superman's just got like a chip on his shoulder. Like the Marvel universe, they're having fun. They can be serious, but there's always that underlying, that little bit of humor, that little bit of like cleverness and charisma, and all the characters in the Marvel universe have some sort of, even like the character I least cared about, which was Hawkeye. Didn't really give a shit about him, but like in Age of Ultron, they gave him some of the best lines in some of the best situations, and because he's just like amongst all these gods, and he's like, this is ridiculous what's happening here, but fuck, it's my job, I gotta do it. I love that.
Yeah, his wife actually thinks less of him as less of him versus like Black Widow.
Right, no doubt. He comes home and she's just like, "Hey, fix the dishwasher, bitch." And he's like, "All right," like he just saved the world.
But she says that thing like, you're amongst gods, and I'm like, wait a minute, Black Widow's not basically a god. She's just somebody like him. So you think she's better than him?
I think she does. I think Black Widow could probably kick his ass.
She does kick his ass in Avengers, the first one.
She does, and I think she even fights him in this. They're on opposite sides in Civil War.
There's a TV spot on the show they're fighting and stuff like that. But yeah, we got, what is it? We got 10 days or 1 week actually while we're doing this recording, and when this releases, you folks have 3 days to wait to watch Civil War.
Absolutely. And then after we watch Civil War, we're going to give you an all-out spoilerific review. We hope you guys watch it that weekend because we're going to spoil the shit out of it. And then that Monday, our review is going to drop, and we're going to see if some of these predictions, pop up. So
what's funny is that we can never remember spoilers, and we just said spoilers for the review that we're going to do next week.
So that was the earliest spoiler warning ever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's either we do it a week before or fucking 20 minutes into the episode.
After we give away the whole movie, we're like, "Oh yeah, by the way."
Yeah. By the way.
Meanwhile, you're crying as you're listening.
By the way, Vader is Luke's father.
Yep. Bruce Willis is dead all the way through The Sixth Sense. That's what I always say.
Yeah. Amy's mom gets shot.
Well, guys, that's Captain America and Civil War all in a nutshell. We're very excited for the movie and very excited to bring you guys the review. Yeah, that's episode 22 of Chew on This, a Nerds United podcast. I'm BJ.
Vic.
Chew on that. Till next time.
Later.